Jake Collins stood at his post near the bridge door, trying not to look nervous. At 19 years old, he was the youngest soldier on the USS Dakota. His uniform still felt stiff and new, and he checked his weapon for the 10th time that morning. The other crew members walked past him with confidence, but Jake still felt like he did not belong here. Captain Lisa Morgan sat in her command chair, watching the screens around her. The Dakota was on a simple mission to explore the Kepler 442 system. They were looking for new planets that humans could live on someday. It was supposed to be a quiet trip with no danger. "Captain, I'm getting something strange on the sensors," said Ryan Bell from his station. He was the ship's communications officer, and he looked worried. Captain Morgan turned her chair toward him. "What kind of strange, Ryan?" "There is a large object moving toward us." "It is big, Captain. Much bigger than our ship." Jake felt his heart beat faster. This was his first real mission, and he had hoped it would be boring. He gripped his weapon tighter and tried to remember his training. "Put it on the main screen," Captain Morgan ordered. The front wall of the bridge lit up with an image that made everyone stop talking. A massive ship was floating in space ahead of them. It did not look like any human ship Jake had ever seen. The hull was smooth and curved, like it had grown instead of being built. Strange lights moved along its surface in patterns that seemed almost alive. "How big is that thing?" asked Commander Alex Turner, the second in command. "3 times our size, maybe more," Ryan answered. "And Captain, it is sending us a message." "A message? In what language?" "English, Captain." "Perfect English." The bridge fell silent. Jake could hear his own breathing. How could aliens speak English? And how did they even know English existed? "Put the message through," Captain Morgan said. A voice filled the bridge. It was clearly female, but there was something different about it. The words were perfect, but the tone was unlike any human voice Jake had ever heard. "Human vessel Dakota. This is Queen Vexithera of the Zephyrian Royal Fleet. We wish to speak with your leader. Please prepare to receive our diplomatic party." Captain Morgan looked around the bridge. Everyone was staring at her, waiting for orders. Jake tried to stand straighter even though his legs felt weak. "This is Captain Lisa Morgan of the USS Dakota. Queen Vexithara, we welcome peaceful contact. How would you like to proceed?" "We will send a holographic projection to your ship. Please gather your senior officers in your meeting room. We have much to discuss." The message ended, and the bridge was quiet again. Jake watched Captain Morgan think for a moment before she started giving orders. "Alex, get Dr. Carter and Maria Santos to the conference room. Ryan, you come too. We need our best people for this." "What about security, Captain?" asked Maria Santos, the security chief. She had just arrived on the bridge after hearing the alert. "Standard protocol. But let's not look hostile. This could be the most important day in human history." 20 minutes later, Jake found himself standing guard outside the conference room. He could hear voices inside, but the door was thick and he could not make out the words. His job was simple: stand here and watch for trouble. But his mind was racing with questions. The door opened and Dr. Helen Carter stepped out. She was the ship's expert on alien life, though she had never actually met any aliens before today. She looked excited and nervous at the same time. "Jake, the captain wants you inside," she said. "Me? Why would she want me?" "I do not know. But she asked for you specifically." Jake followed Dr. Carter back into the room. The other officers were sitting around a large table, but they were all looking at something else. In the center of the room stood a figure that made Jake's breath catch in his throat. The alien was tall and elegant, almost human in shape, but clearly different. Her skin was a deep blue color that seemed to shine with its own light. She had 4 arms instead of 2, and strange markings on her face that changed color as Jake watched. Her eyes were large and intelligent, and they seemed to look right through him. "Ah," said the alien queen in that strange voice. "This must be your military escort." "This is Private Jake Collins," Captain Morgan said. "He is part of our security team." Queen Vexithara turned her full attention to Jake. He felt like she was studying every detail about him. The colored markings on her face shifted from blue to gold, and something like a smile appeared on her features. "Interesting," she said. "Very interesting indeed." The meeting continued with talk of trade routes and peaceful contact between their species. Jake tried to pay attention, but he kept noticing that the Queen's eyes returned to him again and again. It made him uncomfortable, but he tried not to show it. Finally, after what felt like hours, Queen Vexithera stood up. Her 4 arms moved in a graceful gesture that might have been a bow. Captain Morgan, this has been most educational. Your species shows great promise. Thank you, Your Majesty. We hope this is the beginning of a long friendship between our peoples. The Queen nodded, but then she turned to look directly at Jake again. Her markings shifted to a bright gold color, and she raised one of her arms to point at him. That human will be mine, she said clearly. The room went dead silent. Jake felt the blood drain from his face. Captain Morgan stood up slowly, her expression careful and controlled. I am sorry, Your Majesty, but I think there has been a misunderstanding. Private Collins is not property. Humans are not owned by other humans or aliens. Queen Vexithara's markings shifted to a deeper gold, and her smile grew wider. Oh, Captain Morgan, I think you are the one who misunderstands. In Zephyrian culture, when we claim a warrior, it is the highest honor we can give. That young human has caught my attention, and I will have him. Jake's mouth went dry. He wanted to say something, but no words would come out. This was supposed to be a simple diplomatic meeting, but now he was somehow at the center of an interstellar incident. Captain Morgan's voice was steady but firm. Your Majesty, with respect, Private Collins is under my command and protection. He cannot simply be claimed by another species, no matter how honorable your intentions. The Queen's markings flickered between gold and red. Then perhaps we have nothing more to discuss today. But mark my words, Captain. That human will be mine, one way or another. The holographic projection flickered and disappeared, leaving the conference room in stunned silence. Jake sat in his small quarters staring at the wall. 3 hours had passed since Queen Vexithara had claimed him, and he still could not believe it was real. His hands shook as he tried to eat dinner, but the food tasted like nothing. A soft knock on his door made him jump. Come in, he said. Dr. Helen Carter stepped inside, carrying a datapad and looking tired. Hello, Jake, how are you holding up? I do not know, Jake said honestly. What does she want with me? Why me? Dr. Carter sat down across from him. I have been studying everything we know about Zephyrian culture. It is not much, but I am learning some interesting things. Like what? Well, when she said claiming you was an honor, she might have been telling the truth. From what I can understand, Zephyrians do not take slaves or prisoners. When they claim someone, it means they see great potential in that person. Jake felt a little better, but not much. So what happens now? Captain Morgan is trying to open communications again. We need to understand exactly what Queen Vexithara wants and why she chose you. Before Jake could answer, the ship's communication system crackled to life. All senior staff to the bridge immediately. We are receiving another transmission from the Zephyrian ship. Dr. Carter and Jake hurried to the bridge. Captain Morgan was already there, along with Commander Turner and the other officers. On the main screen, Queen Vexithara appeared again. This time she was not alone. Another alien stood beside her, similar in appearance but with darker blue skin and silver markings. Captain Morgan, the Queen said, I believe we need to clarify some things about Zephyrian customs. We would appreciate that, Your Majesty, Captain Morgan replied. The Queen gestured to the alien beside her. This is Commander Rixtel, my chief advisor. He will help explain our ways. Commander Rixtel stepped forward. His voice was deeper than the Queen's, and his English was not as perfect. Captain, in our society, claiming a warrior is not what you might think. It is a challenge, not ownership. What kind of challenge? Asked Dr. Carter. The claimed warrior must prove they are worthy of the honor, Queen Vexithara explained. They face 3 trials, tests of strength, wisdom, and character. If they succeed, they earn a place of respect in our society. If they fail? She did not finish the sentence, but her meaning was clear. Jake felt his stomach drop. And if I refuse to take these trials? The Queen's markings shifted to a cold blue color. Then we will assume your entire species is weak and unworthy of our respect. The Zephyrian Empire will treat humanity as we treat all inferior races. Which means what exactly? Captain Morgan asked. Commander Rixtel answered. Conquest. Your worlds would become part of our empire. Your people would serve us. The bridge fell silent. Jake realized that his personal problem had become much bigger. The fate of humanity might depend on his ability to pass 3 alien tests. How much time do we have to decide? Captain Morgan asked. One of your days, Queen Vexithara said. We will wait for Private Collins to accept the challenge. If he does not, we will return with our war fleet. The transmission ended, leaving everyone staring at the empty screen. Commander Turner was the first to speak. We need to contact Earth Command immediately. This is bigger than our mission. Already done, Captain Morgan said. But it will take hours for a message to reach Earth and hours more for a reply. We might have to make this decision on our own. Jake felt everyone looking at him. The weight of their stares was almost unbearable. Captain, what do you think I should do? Captain Morgan sat down heavily in her chair.
Jake, I cannot order you to risk your life for humanity.
But I also cannot order you not to try. This has to be your choice. What do we know about these trials? Jake asked Dr. Carter. Not much, she admitted. But from what Commander Rixtel said, they test different aspects of a person. Strength could mean physical combat. Wisdom might be puzzles or strategic thinking. Character, she shrugged. That could be anything. Jake spent the next few hours in the ship's small library, reading everything they had about alien cultures and combat techniques. He practiced in the gym, trying to prepare his body for unknown challenges. But mostly, he thought about his family back on Earth. His parents had been proud when he joined the space service, even though it meant he might be gone for years. He thought about his little sister, who always said she wanted to be just like him when she grew up. Most of all, he thought about what it meant to be human. Captain Morgan had said humans were not property, and she was right. But maybe there was more to it than that. Maybe being human meant standing up when others could not. Maybe it meant taking risks to protect people you cared about. Late that night, Jake made his decision. The next morning, he stood on the bridge in his best uniform. Captain Morgan had called the senior staff together and everyone was waiting to hear what he would say. Captain, Jake said, his voice steadier than he felt. I want to accept Queen Vexithera's challenge. Jake, are you sure? Dr. Carter asked. We do not know what these trials involve. They could be deadly. I know, Jake said. But if I do not try, then humanity loses anyway. At least this way we have a chance. Captain Morgan nodded slowly. Very well. Ryan, open a channel to the Zephyrian ship. Queen Vexthera appeared on the screen, and her markings immediately shifted to bright gold when she saw Jake standing at attention. Your Majesty, Jake said before anyone else could speak. I accept your challenge. I will take your 3 trials. The Queen's smile was unlike anything Jake had ever seen. It was fierce and proud and somehow approving all at once. Excellent, she said. You show courage, young human. That is good. You will need it. When do we begin? Jake asked immediately. You will come aboard our ship, Captain Morgan. You may send 1 observer to witness the trials. Choose carefully. Captain Morgan looked around the bridge. Dr. Carter will accompany Private Collins as our observer. Acceptable, the Queen said. We will transport them both within the hour. Private Collins, I hope you are ready to discover what it truly means to be worthy of Zephyrian respect. The transmission ended, and Jake felt his heart pounding. In 1 hour, he would be on an alien ship, facing tests that could determine the future of humanity. He was terrified, but he was also determined. Dr. Carter put a hand on his shoulder. Jake, whatever happens over there, remember that you represent all of us. But more than that, you represent the best of what it means to be human. What if I am not good enough? Jake asked quietly. Then we will face whatever comes next together, Captain Morgan said. But I have a feeling you are going to surprise everyone, including yourself. Jake nodded and tried to believe her. In less than an hour, he would find out if being human was enough to earn the respect of an alien empire. The thought scared him, but it also filled him with a strange kind of excitement. Whatever these trials were, he would face them with everything he had. For humanity, for his shipmates, and for himself. The transport beam felt like being pulled apart and put back together. Jake found himself standing in a large room with walls that seemed to pulse with their own light. The air tasted different here, cleaner somehow, and he could feel that the gravity was stronger than on the Dakota. Dr. Carter materialized beside him, looking dizzy. That was not like any teleporter I have read about, she said quietly. Queen Vexithera stood waiting for them, along with Commander Rixtel and several other Zephyrians. Up close, Jake could see that their blue skin had a texture like smooth stone, and their forearms moved with perfect coordination. Welcome aboard the Stellar Dominance, the Queen said. Dr. Carter, you will be taken to an observation area where you can watch the trials safely. Private Collins, you will come with me. Jake followed the Queen through corridors that curved and twisted in ways that made no sense to his human mind. The walls were covered with symbols that glowed and shifted, and he could hear a low humming sound that seemed to come from the ship itself. "Your ship is alive," Jake said. It was not a question. "Very observant," Queen Vexithara replied. "Zephyrian vessels are grown, not built. This ship has served my family for over 200 years. They entered a huge chamber with a high ceiling that disappeared into darkness. The floor was covered with what looked like sand, but it sparkled with tiny lights. Around the edges of the room, Jake could see Zephyrian warriors watching him with interest. "The first trial is strength," the Queen announced, "but not the kind of strength you might expect. We do not simply test muscle power. We test adaptation, endurance, and the will to continue when everything seems impossible." A section of the floor began to rise, forming a platform in the center of the room. On the platform stood three shapes that Jake realized were robots, but they looked nothing like human machines. These were sleek and dangerous, with multiple arms and legs that could bend in any direction. "You will face these training constructs in combat," Commander Rixtel explained. "They are programmed with the fighting skills of our greatest warriors. Many Zephyrian candidates fail this trial." Jake looked at the robots and felt his mouth go dry. They were bigger than him, faster looking, and probably much stronger. But he had trained for combat, even if it was against human opponents. "Do I get any weapons?" he asked. "Whatever you can find or make," the Queen said. "Adaptation means using what is available." Jake stepped onto the platform and looked around. The sand beneath his feet was loose and deep. Around the edges of the platform were scattered pieces of metal, rope, and other materials. It was like a junkyard, but he suspected everything here was placed for a reason. The first robot activated and moved toward him with fluid grace. Jake had never seen anything move like that. It seemed to flow rather than walk, and its multiple arms waved in patterns that made him dizzy to watch. Jake dove to the side as the robot attacked, its arm passing through the space where his head had been. He rolled across the sand and grabbed a piece of metal pipe. It was lighter than he expected but felt solid in his hands. The robot came at him again and Jake swung the pipe at its center. The robot caught the pipe with two of its arms and twisted it out of his grip, but Jake had expected that. As the robot focused on the pipe, Jake kicked sand up into its optical sensors. The robot stumbled, temporarily blinded, and Jake used the chance to grab a coil of rope from the edge of the platform. He had an idea, but it was crazy enough that it might work. As the robot cleared its sensors and came after him again, Jake ran. But he was not running away. He was running in a circle around the platform, trailing the rope behind him. The robot followed, moving faster than Jake could run, but that was what he wanted. When the robot got close enough, Jake suddenly changed direction and dove between its legs. The rope, which he had been laying in a wide circle, pulled tight around the robot's multiple limbs. The machine crashed to the sand, tangled and struggling. Jake did not stop to celebrate. The second robot was already moving toward him. This one was different. It had learned from watching the first fight, and it moved more carefully. Jake tried the sand trick again, but the robot had protective covers over its sensors. He tried to tangle it with rope, but it cut through the rope with sharp claws that extended from its hands. Jake was running out of ideas and getting tired. The stronger gravity was making his muscles ache, and the robot seemed to have unlimited energy. He needed to think like a human, not like a Zephyrian. Looking around the platform, Jake spotted something the aliens probably had not considered important. A small puddle of water from a broken pipe. He led the robot toward it, dodging its attacks and trying not to get caught by those claws. When the robot stepped in the water, Jake grabbed two pieces of metal and jammed them into exposed circuits on the robot's back. Sparks flew, and the robot's movements became jerky and uncontrolled. Jake kept moving, staying behind the damaged robot until it finally shut down. The third robot was the largest and most dangerous. It had watched both previous fights and seemed to learn from each mistake. It also had more weapons built into its frame, including energy beams that cut through metal like butter. Jake was exhausted, but he forced himself to keep thinking. What did humans do that aliens might not expect? What made his species special? The answer came to him as he dodged another energy beam. Humans were not the strongest or the fastest, but they were the most unpredictable. They could think outside rules and patterns that other species followed. Instead of fighting the robot directly, Jake started building something. He used pieces of metal, rope, and even sand to construct what looked like a crude catapult. The robot watched him work, probably trying to understand what he was building. When Jake was ready, he loaded his catapult with a chunk of metal and aimed it not at the robot, but at the ceiling above the robot's head. The metal struck something important up there, and a shower of sparks rained down. The robot looked up to see what was happening. That was when Jake attacked. While the robot was distracted, he ran straight at it and jumped. He was not trying to fight it with strength. Instead, he climbed onto its back like it was a tree, using his smaller size and flexibility to stay out of reach of its weapons. The robot spun and twisted, trying to shake him off, but Jake held on. He found the main power connection on the robot's neck and pulled it free with all his strength. The robot froze in place, its lights going dark. Jake dropped to the sand, breathing hard and covered in sweat. Around the chamber, the Zephyrian warriors were making sounds that might have been approval or surprise. Queen Vexithara walked onto the platform, her markings bright gold. "Impressive," she said. "You did not win through superior strength or speed. You won by thinking in ways our constructs could not predict. That is a very human trait." "Is that good or bad?" Jake asked, still trying to catch his breath. "It is interesting," the Queen replied, "and it means you have passed the first trial. But the second trial will test your mind, not your body. Rest now. Tomorrow we will see if human creativity extends to wisdom and strategy." As Jake was led to a resting area, he felt a mix of pride and worry. He had passed one trial, but two more remained, and he had a feeling they would only get harder from here. Dr. Carter was waiting for him in the resting area, looking amazed. "Jake, that was incredible. I do not think any Zephyrian warrior would have thought to fight like that." "Is that good?" Jake asked. "I think so," she said. "But we will find out tomorrow." Jake lay down on the strange Zephyrian bed and tried to sleep. Outside, he could hear the sounds of the alien ship around him. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight he had proven that being human meant something special. He just hoped it would be enough for the trials to come. Jake woke to the sound of alarms screaming through the ship. The walls around him flashed red, and he could feel the stellar dominance shaking like it was being hit by something massive. He jumped up from the strange bed and ran to find Dr. Carter. She was already awake, looking scared. "Jake, what is happening?" Before he could answer, Queen Vexithara appeared in the doorway. Her markings were flashing between red and orange, and all four of her arms were moving in quick, nervous gestures. "The Krathen have found us," she said. "We are under attack." "The Krathen?" Jake asked. "Our greatest enemy," the Queen explained quickly. "They are a swarm species like insects, but much more dangerous. We have been at war with them for over 1,000 years. Another massive impact shook the ship, and Jake heard the sound of metal tearing somewhere in the distance. "What does this mean for the trials?" Dr. Carter asked. Queen Vexithara's markings shifted to deep red. "The trials are suspended. We must focus on survival now. Private Collins, you and Dr. Carter will be taken to a safe area of the ship." "No," Jake said quickly. "If this ship is in danger, I want to help fight." The Queen stared at him. "You would fight for us, even though we are holding you prisoner?" "You are not holding me prisoner," Jake said. "I chose to take your trials. And if your ship is destroyed, the trials do not matter anyway." Commander Rixtel appeared behind the Queen, his markings flashing urgent orange. "My Queen, the Krathen have breached the outer hull. They are sending boarding pods." Queen Vexithara made a decision. "Very well, Private Collins. You will fight alongside my warriors, but you will follow my orders exactly. The Krathen are not like your training robots. They will kill you without hesitation." Jake nodded. "Just tell me what to do." The Queen led him through corridors filled with running Zephyrian warriors. Everyone was moving with purpose, but Jake could see fear in their large eyes. Whatever these Krathen were, even the advanced Zephyrians were scared of them. They reached an armory where Zephyrian warriors were gathering weapons. The Queen handed Jake something that looked like a rifle but felt warm and alive in his hands. "This is a plasma weapon," she explained. "Point and fire. The energy bolts will burn through most Krathen armor, but you must aim carefully. We do not have unlimited charges." The ship shook again, and this time Jake heard something that made his blood run cold. It was a sound like metal being chewed, coming from the direction of the outer hull. "They are cutting through," Commander Rixtel reported. "Krathen biocutters are breaching Deck 7. Queen Vexithara turned to her warriors. "Defense Formation Alpha. Protect the core systems at all costs." She looked at Jake. "Stay close to me. Do not try to be a hero." They moved through the ship toward the sound of cutting metal. As they got closer, Jake began to smell something awful like rotting meat mixed with acid. Then he heard new sounds, clicking, scratching, and something that might have been communication in a language that hurt his ears. The first Krathen came through the hole in the wall like a nightmare made real. It was insect-like but the size of a large human, with 6 arms that ended in cutting claws. Its body was covered in dark, oily armor that seemed to move on its own. Worst of all were its eyes, dozens of them black and reflecting the ship's lights like evil mirrors. Jake's training took over. He raised the plasma rifle and fired. The bolt of energy hit the Krathen center mass, burning through its armor and dropping it to the floor, but 2 more immediately took its place. The battle that followed was unlike anything Jake had ever imagined. The Krathen moved like water, flowing around obstacles and attacking from unexpected angles. They worked together perfectly like parts of a single mind, and they seemed to feel no fear or pain. The Zephyrian warriors fought with honor and discipline, but Jake could see they were struggling. Their tactics were formal and predictable. The Krathen adapted to every move almost before it was made. "They are learning our patterns too quickly," Queen Vexithara shouted over the sound of plasma fire. "We need to change our approach." Jake saw an opportunity. "Your Majesty, let me try something." Without waiting for permission, Jake did something no Zephyrian warrior would think of. He threw his plasma rifle at the nearest Krathen, then dove and rolled across the floor to grab a fallen weapon. The Krathen that had been tracking his original weapon was confused for just a moment, but that was enough for Jake to fire from his new position. "Unpredictable movement patterns," Jake called out. "Do not fight like they expect you to fight." Queen Vexithara understood immediately. She began giving new orders to her warriors, telling them to break formation and fight like individuals rather than a unit. It worked. The Krathen, who had been adapting to Zephyrian group tactics, suddenly found themselves facing chaotic, unpredictable attacks. But more Krathen kept coming through the breach. For everyone they killed, 2 more appeared. Jake realized they were being overwhelmed. "We need to seal that breach," he told the Queen. "How?" "The Krathen biocutters have made the hole too large for our repair systems." Jake looked around the corridor and got an idea. It was crazy, but crazy seemed to work against the Krathen. "Do you have any explosive charges on this ship?" Queen Vexithara's markings flashed confused orange. "Yes, but we cannot use explosives here. We would damage our own hull." "Not if we use them outside the ship," Jake said. "What if someone took charges to the Krathen ship and destroyed their cutting equipment?" "That would be suicide," Commander Rixtel said. "No one could survive in space long enough to reach their ship." "What about your transport system? The one you used to bring me here?" The Queen's markings shifted to bright gold as she understood. "You want to transport onto a Krathen ship and destroy it from the inside. Can it be done?" "Possibly. But the person doing it would probably not survive. The Krathen ship would be destroyed along with whoever is on it." Jake took a deep breath. "Then we better make sure someone expendable does it." "No," Queen Vexithara said firmly. "I will not sacrifice you for my ship." "You are not sacrificing me," Jake said. "I am volunteering. This is my choice." Before anyone could stop him, Jake grabbed a pack of explosive charges from a fallen Zephyrian warrior and ran toward the transport room. Behind him he could hear Queen Vexithara shouting orders, but he did not stop. The transport room was empty except for the strange machinery that had brought him to this ship. Jake had watched the technicians operate it, and he thought he understood the basic controls. He hoped he was right. Queen Vexithara burst into the room just as Jake was setting the coordinates for the Krathen ship. "Private Collins, stop," she ordered. "I command you to stop." Jake looked at her and smiled. "Your Majesty, with respect, I do not take orders from you. I am still a human soldier, and this is what human soldiers do." He activated the transport before she could reach him. The sensation of being pulled apart was worse this time, maybe because he was transporting to a ship that was not designed for Zephyrian technology. When he materialized, he was inside a nightmare. The Krathen ship was dark and wet, with walls that pulsed like they were alive. The air was thick and hard to breathe, and everything smelled like death. Jake could hear the sounds of Krathen all around him, clicking and scratching as they moved through their ship. He had maybe 5 minutes before they found him. Jake began placing explosive charges on what he hoped were important systems. The Krathen technology was so alien that he could not be sure what anything did, but he placed charges on anything that looked vital. As he worked, Jake thought about his family on Earth, his shipmates on the Dakota, and the Queen who had believed he could be worthy of respect. He thought about what it meant to be human in a universe full of species that were stronger, smarter, and more advanced. Maybe being human meant being willing to do the impossible when everything depended on it. Jake finished placing the charges and set the timer for 2 minutes. Then he found a place to hide and waited. Around him, the Krathen ship continued its attack on the stellar dominance, not knowing that its destruction was counting down. When the explosives went off, Jake's world ended in fire and light. Jake woke up in pain. Everything hurt, from his head to his toes, and he could barely see through eyes that felt like they were full of sand. But he was alive, which surprised him more than anything else. He is awake, he heard Dr. Carter say somewhere nearby. Jake tried to sit up but found himself strapped to what felt like a medical bed. The room around him was white and clean, very different from the dark Krathen ship he remembered. "Easy, Jake," Dr. Carter said, moving into his view. "You have been unconscious for 3 days. You were badly hurt in the explosion." "The Krathen ship?" Jake asked. His voice came out as a whisper. "Destroyed," said another voice. Queen Vexthara appeared beside Dr. Carter, her markings a soft blue color that Jake had never seen before. "Your plan worked. The explosion damaged their main vessel so badly that the remaining Krathen retreated." Jake tried to process this information.
How am I alive?
"I was on that ship when it exploded. Our transport system locked onto your life signs at the moment of explosion," the Queen explained. "We barely got you out in time. You were severely injured, but our medical technology is quite advanced." Jake looked down at himself and saw that his arms were covered with bandages and strange alien devices that hummed softly. "How long until I can get back to my duties?" Queen Vexthara's markings shifted to that bright gold color that Jake was beginning to recognize as amusement. "Private Collins, I think you misunderstand the situation. Your trials are complete." "Complete? But I only finished the first trial. I never took the tests of wisdom and character." "On the contrary," the Queen said. "You completed all 3 trials during the battle. Your wisdom was shown when you recognized that our traditional tactics were failing against the Krathen and suggested new approaches. Your character was proven when you chose to sacrifice yourself to save my ship and crew." Jake stared at her. "So I passed?" "You did more than pass," Queen Vexthara said. "You have proven that humans possess qualities that could be valuable allies. Your species thinks in ways that our enemies cannot predict. That makes you very dangerous to them and very useful to us." Dr. Carter smiled at Jake. "There is more good news. Captain Morgan has been in contact with Earth Command. The government wants to establish formal diplomatic relations with the Zephyrian Empire." "What does that mean?" Jake asked. Queen Vexthara sat down in a chair next to his bed. "It means that instead of claiming one human warrior, I propose a partnership between our species. We will share technology and military techniques. Your people will learn from our science and we will learn from your creativity." Jake felt a weight lifting from his shoulders. "So humanity is safe?" "More than safe," the Queen said. "Respected. You have shown us that being different is not the same as being weak. Your species may not be as strong as ours physically, but your minds work in ways that could give us great advantages against enemies like the Krathen." Commander Rixtel entered the medical bay, his markings a respectful silver color. "My Queen, the human vessel Dakota is requesting permission to dock. Captain Morgan wishes to see Private Collins." "Of course," Queen Vexthara said. "And Commander, prepare the formal alliance documents. It is time to make this partnership official." An hour later, Jake was sitting up in bed when Captain Morgan entered with several other officers from the Dakota. She looked relieved to see him awake. "Private Collins," she said formally, "you have gone far beyond the call of duty. Your actions have not only saved the lives of our alien hosts, but have opened the door to an alliance that could benefit all of humanity. I just did what seemed right." "Captain," Jake said. "That is exactly what makes humans special," Queen Vexthara said, entering behind the human officers. "You did not follow rules or protocols. You saw what needed to be done and you did it, even at great personal risk." Captain Morgan turned to the Queen. "Your Majesty, Earth Command has authorized me to begin formal alliance negotiations. We are honored by your offer of partnership. The honor is mutual, Captain Morgan, but I have one request regarding these negotiations." "What is that?" Queen Vexthara looked at Jake. "I want Private Collins to serve as a cultural liaison between our species. He understands both human nature and Zephyrian values. He would be invaluable in helping our peoples work together. Jake felt his heart race. You want me to stay here? On your ship? For a time, yes. You would help train my warriors in human tactical thinking while learning our ways. Eventually, you could return to your own people to teach them what you have learned. It would be a great honor for both of us. Jake looked at Captain Morgan. What do you think, Captain? I think it is an opportunity that may never come again, she said. But the choice is yours, Jake. You have earned the right to decide your own path. Jake thought about everything that had happened. A week ago, he had been the youngest, most inexperienced soldier on the Dakota. Now he was being offered a chance to help shape the future relationship between two species. I accept, he said, but I want to make sure I can visit Earth sometimes. I have family there. Queen Vexthara's markings shifted to warm gold. Of course. The alliance will include regular communication and travel between our worlds. Your family will always be welcome aboard Zephyrian ships. Dr. Carter stepped forward. Jake, this is an incredible opportunity. You will be the first human to really understand an alien culture from the inside, and the first alien cultural liaison to understand human unpredictability, Queen Vexthara added. I suspect you will surprise us many more times before this partnership is complete. Over the following weeks, Jake began his new role. He taught Zephyrian warriors how to think creatively in combat, while learning about their technology and philosophy. The Queen was right. The two species had much to offer each other. The Zephyrians were amazed by human adaptability and innovation. Humans were impressed by Zephyrian honor and advanced science. Together they began developing new strategies for fighting, the Krathen that combined the best of both approaches. Jake often thought about the moment when Queen Vexthara had pointed at him and declared, "That human will be mine." At the time, it had seemed like a threat. Now he understood it had been recognition of potential. He was not hers in the sense of being owned or controlled. Instead, he had become something more valuable, a bridge between two very different peoples who had discovered they were stronger together than apart. 6 months later, Jake stood on the bridge of the Stellar Dominance as it approached Earth for the first official diplomatic visit. Through the view screen, he could see his home planet growing larger, blue and beautiful against the black of space. Nervous? Queen Vexthara asked, joining him at the window. A little, Jake admitted. Everything is going to change now, is not it? Change can be frightening, the Queen agreed. But it can also be wonderful. Your species is about to discover that they are not alone in the universe. And not only are they not alone, but they have found friends among the stars. Jake smiled as Earth filled the view screen. I think humanity is ready for that. I know they are, Queen Vexthara said. After all, they produced you. As the Stellar Dominance entered Earth orbit, Jake felt a sense of pride and accomplishment unlike anything he had ever experienced. He had started this journey as the youngest soldier on a simple exploration mission. He was ending it as the first human ambassador to an alien empire. But more than that, he had proven that being human meant something special in the universe. It meant having the courage to face the unknown, the wisdom to adapt when old methods failed, and the character to sacrifice for others when everything depended on it. The stars were no longer strange and frightening. They were full of possibilities, and humanity was ready to explore them all.